Let's hear what the Ukrainian president had to say earlier.
I would like to address all those in Russia, or from Russia, who have failed to say a few words to condemn this terror, even now, even though they perfectly see and know everything. Your cowardly silence, your attempt to wait out what is happening, will only end with the same terrorists coming to get you one day. Evil is extremely sensitive to cowardice. Evil always remembers those who feared it or tried to bargain with it. When they try to get you, there will be no one to protect you.
And let's cross now to France 24's Luke Shrago, who's in Kiev. Luke, what is the latest regarding that search and rescue operation in Dnipro?
Well, we're now moving into towards the third day since that strike took place on Saturday, and as we've heard from local authorities there, they fear that there may well now be no one left alive under the rubble. These rescue efforts have continued almost non-stop since the strike itself. The death toll has again trickled up on Monday. That is now set to get even higher still, with a lot of people still missing. The mayor of the city, he did say that despite the fact there were no military targets in the area, he thinks it may have been possible that the Russians were attempting to strike at essential infrastructure, a power station that was a few kilometers away. You have to remember that the missile that was used, a Soviet-era Kha-22 missile that was designed to take out shipping in the 1960s, it's notoriously unreliable. It's also a massive warhead, a massive missile that leaves a massive amount of destruction in its wake. They believe at this point that that may well have been the target that the Russians were trying to strike at. But the difficulty that we've seen for these strikes, we've seen missiles coming in on ballistic tracks. They are very, very difficult to take down. They go up in the air, and what we've been told is that the difficulty with that is that anti-air defense, despite the fact that Ukraine's been doing increasingly better with it, unless there is an anti-missile, an anti-air defense site right next to the target, there is almost no warning. We heard about the strikes here in the capital, Kiev, on the Saturday, that the air alarms went off only after the strikes took place. You remember that cruise missiles, on the other hand, they fly straight, level and flat, as the same as drones, and they're a lot easier to take down because there's a lot more warning coming with when they are fired at targets in Ukraine.
Now, Luke, you've just spent the last 3 weeks in the country and you're wrapping up your time there in Ukraine. What have been your main observations this time around?
Well, it has to be said that in comparison with the beginning of the war, where it was really anti-tank weapons that really helped to save Ukraine from the initial stages of the invasion, the calls have multiplied. It's almost been the same refrain right the way through the course of the war. Please close the sky, urging NATO, close the sky and institute a no-fly zone, something like this, to try and help protect Ukraine from continued and repeated attacks with missiles. And that's only become louder over the time that I've been here. You remember just a few months ago, they started these wide-scale missile strikes. And it's air defense now, that's the period of the war that we're in, to try and stop these missiles from moving forward to reach their targets. It's extremely difficult without massive amounts of air defense to prevent these things from reaching their targets, despite the fact that Ukraine has indeed become a lot more experienced in using it. They are expecting further means to arrive, and I do personally think that is the stage now of the war that we're in, when we're getting the kinds of means in beyond like anti-tank measures such as the Javelin missiles that have proven so effective in Ukrainian hands. It's now air defense measures that they need, and that is the big call moving forward.
And is there anybody whose story really resonated with you, Luke?
I think, yes, there is one person in particular. We may be seeing images of that on the screen at the moment. The people that we went to interview, a young mother with her young family over the course of the new year. We went to see them on New Year's night. She was marking the moment with her young family, a young son and extremely young daughter. Their interview is going to stay with me for years moving forwards. They lost their uncle a few months previously, who's been fighting in Donbass, and it's so difficult for them. You can hear it in the tone of their voice. The little girl, she doesn't know exactly the nature of the war, but the son, Svetozar, he knows what's happening. We're unfortunately unable to get that moment into our report. It was a little bit too long, but what she told us was that he used to play with his toy soldiers. At the beginning of the war, he started like breaking them, throwing them on the floor, wanted nothing to do with them, and that's changed a little bit now. He wants to join the ZSU, the armed forces of Ukraine. He wants to support his father, who is also fighting. A father, I remind you, that hasn't seen his family as is the case with so many people left behind as their loved ones, their families, sons, daughters, mothers, fathers move to fight the Russian invasion on the front lines. It really is quite hard to see. And we heard in the wake of that report that Alina, the person that we interviewed, she was extremely distressed. I mean, for any family in the capital city like Kiev, it's been incredibly difficult. Do they leave the city? We remember over the course of the New Year period that more spates of these missile attacks were coming in, targeting the capital, both cruise missiles, drones. We were on our way back from that report during the curfew in the small hours, when we heard over the course of about 10 to 15 minutes driving back to where we were staying, around about 5 or 6 explosions, some of them very close. We saw drones being shot down in the sky, exploding above our heads. And these families, who have young children, the question is, what do they do? Do they stay? Do they go? Do they try to wait until they know which way things are going to go? And we heard from Alina that a couple of days later that she had decided to move to somewhere in the west of Ukraine to try and keep her family safe.
Luke Shrago there, reporting from Kyiv, who's heading back to France after 3 weeks. Thanks for that, Luke.